Anything now that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law? Not true. Not true at all. Hey, everybody, this is the Sustainiacs. I'm Michael Vincent. She's Ann Ranke. I'm so glad that you're on this show. I met you right when you first took office, I guess, or switched to TIA, which was right before all hell broke loose. Which I'm sure was a lot of fun. But you're president and CEO of TIA, which my audience varies with a lot of people. There's a lot of people in this audience that doesn't know who TIA is, but it is a Transportation Intermediaries Association. Thanks for being on the show, Ann. I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you, Michael Vincent. I appreciate your invitation. Thank you for including me.
I'd send it to you half expecting to be blown off for a little while and have to be persistent.
Not.
But to my surprise, you're like, I actually recognize that I know you. I will respond.
I will.
Tell everybody what the TIA is and what you guys do over there besides, play poker in back rooms and stuff.
Okay. So the Transportation Intermediaries Association is the association that represents about 2,000 third-party logistics companies in the transportation space. And so what are they? Those folks are those who arrange transportation for compensation for shippers such as Costco or ConAgra. Mm-hmm. And they connect with the carrier, and mainly motor carriers, but we do have some intermodal business. We do have some air freight, and we do have a little bit of ocean going vessel. And so when I say arrange transportation, they could do more than that. They could warehouse, pick and pack, right? They could even do packaging. It really all just depends on what that shipper needs. If they want to just turn all over the keys to the transportation portfolio to our members, we have members who can help them.
Right. It's interesting to me, Ann, because now that you mentioned that, it's when we started BITA, if you're familiar with the Blockchain and Transportation Association, right? It started as trucking, BITA, Blockchain and Trucking Association. And like 6 months into it, I signed UPS into it and Delta Air. And then it was like, okay, it's got to be transportation. Delta obviously is a air cargo. So, I mean, TIA is not Trucking Intermediaries Association. It's almost supply. It's almost supply chain, right? I mean, if you got order fulfillment, all this other kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and you know what? We intentionally changed our branding, our logo, to call ourselves the center of the supply chain because of that. Because we felt that we did more than just represent the voice of the 3PL.
Sure.
We felt because we had members who provided freight tech and visibility, and we had members who were sort of all along the supply chain and could see from drayage to the ports to the end user, that we really wanted to represent, that we sat right in the middle of it.
Yeah, so it's really evolved over the years, right? What I remember the TIA being when I was first introduced to it back in the day, as they say, it literally was like old school transportation, right? I mean, it literally was a bunch of brokers and stuff like that sitting around bitching about the carriers and the shippers and stuff like that, right? But now it's more of a collaborative effort between different things, right? I mean, it actually, it was useful then, but it is so much more now. Would you agree with that statement?
I agree with you. And I think part of it is, look, we'll take all the credit that TIA is attractive and helpful and provides resources for any member from the biggest to the smallest. But I would say too, this industry has become more sophisticated.
Sure.
There are a lot more players into it. The tech space, as you know, the technology folks are fascinated by it, are diving deep into it to try to see what kind of improvements they can make. So I think it's just a changed phenomenon. I hate to say it's a paradigm shift because Lord knows what that even means. But I do think it's a different space. It's a lot more well-known, well understood. And so hence, as a consequence, there are a lot more people in it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm 56. I'm about to be 57, right? And so I'm like the last of the generation. I'm in that last generation that was just after the founders of the original trucking and stuff, right? I mean, I'm one manager away from Galen Roush. and who, you know what I mean, who founded Roadway Express.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's how, right? So I'm just saying, I mean, things have changed. There's much more intelligent there. It's much more open to computer science and tech, and not just management ideation, and not just those people who went to college to be doctors, and they were going to be lawyers, and they're going to be accountants, and then they came out as transportation, right? Which is kind of the old joke that it was. How did you, an owl and a demon deacon, and a JD, major, wind up as head of the TIA?
The road is long and bumpy, right, Michael?
Is that like the Highwaymen, one wrong turn and you're Bonnie and Clyde type of thing? Is that what it is?
Who the heck knows? I will say, it's funny that you mentioned I am a Rice Owl, and I was talking to someone today about how we used to be in the Southwest Conference, and we would routinely lose to powerhouses like UT and Texas A&M and TCU. Now we routinely lose to mid majors and below. It's a totally different time. But anyway,
not if you were like taking law exams and doctorate exams and stuff like that.
We're still just as smart. We're still just as smart.
There you go.
Not athletically gifted. No, that's unfair. But anyway, scholar athletes, as they say.
Yes.
Yes. I went to law school. I was a lawyer ever so briefly. I did not care for it. I like arguing, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should be a lawyer. A lot of what a lawyer does is certainly starting out is doing a lot of document review and doing a lot, doing the grunt work that your partner's assigned to you. And it didn't fill my little tiny heart with joy. So I looked at the advocacy side of it as something I did enjoy. And so from law, I shifted into lobbying. And I was in the railroad industry for a very, very long time. As you know, I worked for CSX for 16 years.
Right.
And learned so much. What an incredible company, and they went through their own barbarians at the gates moment, which many companies do, where they had shareholder proxy action, blah, blah, blah. So it's very, very interesting. But I didn't stay partly because of that. I went to USDOT. I served in a appointed position for about 18 months. And I knew that an election was coming. It wasn't just me. I think the world knew in 2020 that an election was coming in November. So I started looking for other opportunities, and this TIA one presented itself. So there you go. There's a short story.
That's it. And that's, I mean, it makes sense how it happened, right? And it makes sense that, from the DOT to the TIA, because a lot of what you're doing, you're a lobbyist again, really. Right. I mean, in all fairness, I mean, that's a lot of the job, right? Is arguing law and so on and so forth with the government and regulation, et cetera. How is it different from one side of the government wall to the other? Right? Is it different? Are the two sides? I guess what I'm asking are the two sides really aligned more than people might think? Like, from the DOT to now the private side.
Yeah, I would say this. I think. Every administration has their key core constituencies, and it's no secret that this administration, their core constituency is labor, right? Mm-hmm. We all know that. Sure. You saw that with the rail labor.
Shock.
Yeah, I mean, we all know this. This is the most labor-friendly president we've had in recent memory.
Sure.
And so if you're on the other side of a labor dispute, then that can be challenging. And so the railroad saw that there was kind of a push and pull there with the administration on the labor negotiations. They finally got to a good place. I think our issues, because we don't have much of a labor impact, are really treated fairly, and they're just trying to they're trying to get their heads around it. Not everyone who's appointed in powerful positions have some background in the issues. And so what we're trying to do is just educate and be a good partner. There are a lot of career folks who dive in deep and have provide the knowledge to the appointed officials. And so we just rely on them. And I mean, I think everyone's probably got a pretty good heart as it relates to trying to do the right thing, although we may not always agree with them. And if something happens in regulation the next 3 months, I'm going to probably speak more violently. But right now, I feel like we're all trying to.
To what might you be referring? I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Those are interesting points. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense what you said, that, that the in areas where a specific administration, this one or that one, it doesn't matter which one we're talking about, where they're not like heavily aligned with a certain constituency, it's a fairer discussion.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say fight because, it's a fair discussion is what it is. Sometimes it seems like a fight, but like you said, it depends on what side you're on.
Yeah, that's right.
So how's your term gone so far?
Well, so I started in October of 2020, which was still in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And so much of the beginning of my term has really been shaped by how we can sort of persevere throughout COVID. And we've now, I think the pandemic's ending in May, guys. Woo!
I heard, legally it's over, right? Isn't it right?
You got to start paying your rent, Michael Vincent.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm lobbying for the next pandemic right now.
But I would say we've made it on the other side. But, certainly in the beginning times, it was like, well, our association's revenue depends on annual meetings and it depends on member dues. And so first we wanted to make sure we retained all the members we could, and we did. But second of all, we had to make sure, okay, what can we do in the absence of meetings? So we tried, as you know, and I think you've done, virtual meetings. They're not the same.
Sure.
It's not, they don't produce the same interest level of commitment or engagement. You just have to be in person. That's just how it is.
No, it's 100% right. Because I mean, when you're in person there's always something there that you're going to learn. Although I saw some pictures from Manifest right now where people were like, really? There's like 3 people in one of the talks. And they were just saying, how much more effective would it be if it weren't in Vegas, right?
Yeah, Vegas is tough, right?
I get it, why they did it. You get a ton of people there, but then you don't have a ton of people there at the same time, right?
They go enjoy themselves somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to do there, man. Have you ever seen Love? It's awesome. It is a great show. I love the Beatles and it's great. But I know exactly what you mean. It's so easy to look off at this email or to see, now you're over here. Your picture's actually over here. This is the video over here. These are my show notes, and there's the camera, and it keeps me looking here instead of talking like this the whole time, right? But you know as well as I do, I can put it there and have my email up here and be in a meeting and be doing just email.
Oh, 100%.
And not even paying attention. So it's crazy.
But hey, we're just signing off and like, oh, forget it. I got too many other things I got.
And did you ever see that guy on? I don't know if you watch Shark Tank at all. I watch it religiously. I love it. I think it's hilarious, and you learn a lot, anyways. But there was a guy on there that he had a program there that just like it faked you in a Zoom call. You could put it on and people would think you were on the call, and it would,
is so smart.
act like you were there and stuff, but you weren't paying attention at all.
How did they articulate what you would say? Did they use ChatGPT?
No, you didn't really talk or anything like that. Right. So, I mean, it's not like you could be like, between you and I, we couldn't do it, but if you had like a team meeting, you could put it on there. And I guess you realize you're just one of those people that has to tick the box of attendance, and you'll get your, at least a passing grade. Right. I don't know. They didn't get an investment, obviously, but hey, so, I'm not with FreightWaves anymore. I'm doing my own thing here, and I'm doing a startup here with starting my own company here, OPT USA, and doing the Sustainiacs here, which is what you're on, right? And what it is really taking my 35 years of logistics and talking about 3 different things, and we'll get into those 3 different things a little bit. It's sustainability or sustainable supply chains, right? Sustainability in supply chains, and then supply chains of sustainability. And they apply across all kinds of things. We'll get into that. I want to talk to you a little bit about that, but tell us about the TIA. And I've had other people on. I've had Bill Driegert on here, right? From Uber Freight and others talking about logistics and how important logistics is to supply chain. What does TIA do, and what are intermediaries' roles in supply chain sustainability?
Sure.
As far as it goes from a green side first, let's talk about, or just tell me, your thoughts.
Well, so from a green perspective, and this is really the benefit of brokers, green or not, is that we're always trying to produce greater efficiencies in the supply chain for our customers. So what does that mean? Providing the best routing for them, providing the best, so they don't have empty miles. We have a backhaul. We're trying to provide sustainable solutions by choosing the right trucking companies that are using or part of, sustainable solutions. Perhaps they have better equipment, they have better trucks, they have, fewer emitting trucks. But
Sure.
it all boils down to the beauty of what a intermediary is they are there. That connection point is literally trying to make the supply chain much more efficient. And so by relying on us, by using our services, whatever they may be, you are actually trying to make the marketplace and everything else move more smoothly. And what we found in the pandemic was that because of the scarce capacity in the trucking space, 80,000 drivers were absent. Our members were turned to for that just-in-time capacity that no one could find. And they turned to us because we had these relationships and we had the visibility and we had all this sort of, technology that allows us to see where capacity is and where are the pinch points. But they didn't, after sort of the worst of the pandemic, they continued to use us not just for that just in time stuff, but on a regular basis, because we proved our value, that we could actually develop this kind of efficient and effective operation for a shipper that may not have used us on a regular basis, then say, now I want to use you. And, we have a few members, for example, we have a member who does pharmaceuticals. And so during the pandemic, he had access to the equipment, the reefer, for example, that could keep the vaccine the proper temperature. He was the one who knew where those reefers were.
Yeah. Operation Warp or whatever it was.
Exactly. So when you think about that, those in that sense, it was, Pfizer and then some of the government actors contracting with him, but they contracted with him because he knew what he was doing and he knew how to get the equipment that they needed to make the shipment viable, lasting, and effective. And so when you think about our members, we are doing that. And it just so happens it's also incredibly green in the way that we're doing it.
Well, yeah. And not only the way that you're doing it, but the things that the very basic nature, base nature and of the job of the intermediary. And in particular, the makeup of your members now, as you said, you got supply chain people like inside the four wall people. Right. And outside the four wall people, order fulfillment and all this other kind of thing. That sustainability of the supply chain, meaning from an efficiency and stable and resilient, actually impacts the green side and the environmental side. And reducing supply chain disruptions is just a huge thing. Like you just said, if you have a load of vaccines that are gone, wow, the impact can be huge on something like that, right? I mean, that's and talk about food waste every year and empty miles that are moved every single year and that type of stuff. And you talk about the tech that comes in. That's the first one, is what you just described, and what I contend are the three parts of sustainability and supply chain, and how they go together is the sustainable supply chain, meaning its resilience and its stability and its ability to live and move and breathe and change and avoid and react to disruption. That's the first step in making it green, right?
That's exactly right. I think one area that we're going to continue to work on, and if you talk to any truck driver, they'll tell you about this. If you're thinking about moving to your next sort of area of sustainability, we need to work on detention. And part of that has been because the labor shortage is real. It's softening now. Obviously, more people are working now than certainly were at the height of the pandemic, but you couldn't get enough people to be at a warehouse, for example.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
To unload anything or to load anything. And so you had these trucks just, idling, and that's not good for emissions or anything else. So, and it's not good for efficiency, and it's not good for a shipper, and it's not good for the end user. It's not really good for anything, both the first side of sustainability and the second side of sustainability. So that's something that we're going to continue to work on. Again, I think it is improving just because the labor market is less tight, but it's something that it would behoove us to focus on.
Ooh, sweet! Look at that. That's law. That's your law degree coming out. That's the studying of English literature and grammar at Rice.
There you go. There you go. That's right.
We didn't learn behoove in public school.
You didn't learn behoove.
Oh man, no, but that is a solid thing, and it is the sustainability in supply chain, the green initiatives, and how those in particular that are aimed at that, and they still bleed over to efficiencies. I would argue, and I argued while I was still in my former job all the time. We would talk to people about zero emissions, zero emissions, zero emissions. It's like, listen, the sustainability effort within the supply chains is so much more than just emissions. Is this is this diesel engine more green than that diesel engine? Is this one electric? Are we using an add-on like Cybus 21? Brilliant stuff. Injects I think propane in there to burn 100% of the diesel molecule, which increases MPG and reduces the greenhouse gas by like 56%. Just great stuff that we're doing there. But there's so much more in there, like you said, just in the initiatives for efficiency. And one of those is that detention thing, right? Now we can have all the warehouse workers we want in the world, but I mean, 10 years ago, detention sucked then too. We had all kinds of people working, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think that to me is partly a lack of technology, a lack of visibility, and a lack of understanding of where, the trucks were.
So you're familiar with JB Hunt, Convoy, and Uber and their SSC, right? The scheduling. What do you think of that? I think it's pretty. It could be great if people jump into that consortium and help, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak on the specifics of that in particular, but I do think that when you have organizations that see a problem and are trying to talk to each other and collaborate to try to find a solution, that to me seems like it benefits all of us. And I think sometimes people are afraid of technology, or they're afraid that we're all going to get replaced by robots and Chat GPT and everything else. I don't think that it doesn't make sense to me to be afraid of anything like that, because honestly, that can improve the product that we are selling. And don't we want to improve the product that we are selling? 100%. We're selling a service that is providing efficiency for you, the shipper. Well, we got to make sure it continues to evolve so it gets more and more efficient. And so one thing that's wonderful about our members is, you mentioned a few of them, they are so open to the idea of being relentless in their pursuit of greater efficiency. They are not happy to sit idle and say, oh, we figured it out. We got a phone. I got a lot of friends who have trucks. That's not enough for them.
Just got a new fax machine. It's killer.
I just got a new fax. That's so funny. Who faxes anybody anymore? Let's bring that back.
Yeah, it was fun. I grew up when you sent messages through the AS400 to a Twix, a dot matrix, and it said it.
I don't even know what you're saying to me, Michael Vincent. That sounds.
For instance, if I was sitting in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which is one of the terminals that I ran, and I had a shipment in San Diego, or coming into, let's say it was coming into the break bulk or distribution center in Kansas City, I could get into AS400 and send a message to a general position in the facility in Kansas City that said shipment number 975885. Give it the pin, the pro number for the shipment. Please get it on the next truck to Akron, Ohio, Akron 211, and update me with the truck number. And that's all I could really do. Or I could call on the phone and talk to somebody, but it might take an hour. That's how we communicated what was hot and what wasn't hot.
Yeah, so of course there's going to be detention. How could there not be? I mean,
it was ridiculous.
Right? How did anything travel anywhere?
I don't know how we did it. I don't know. We lost the Emmys one year.
You lost the Emmys?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a day that's going to live in infamy.
I mean, we found them again, but we did lose them. But
you lost them ever so briefly.
Yeah, well, they may have been lost a lot longer than that, but I remember the APB going out.
Was it the daytime Emmys? Was it Susan Lucci's?
I forget which one it was, but it was in the 90s that we completely lost. But anyways, I mean, I digress. Let's get back to the topic at hand. Yeah, the green sustainability, and you've got so many members that are getting very, very creative, right? Like we talked about Freightvana before we came on, right? And not to like say they're your favorite or anything, but these guys, they're planting a tree for every load. Right. There's all these creative ways to do this. And one of the things that you mentioned was, finding carriers that are more green. Are you seeing like that as almost a service that's developing in the intermediaries to be able to provide greener um, and verify it? Is that something that is there? Is that an opportunity or a demand that is rising?
Yeah, and I could speak forever on this, but I'll try to keep it that brief. We don't have all
Yeah,
night, but I
that's
would
all
say a
right.
couple things. First of all, yes, there is, and so there's a public-private partnership called EPA SmartWay, run by
Okay.
your good friends at the Environmental Protection Agency, which may not be your good friends, but they are in this case. Whereas they recognize the importance of freight, they recognize the importance of the stakeholders in the freight supply chain. So they're not trying to condemn anybody, but what they're trying to do is make it so that we cut down diesel emissions, we cut down inefficiencies, so we don't have wasted idling, trucks, and that we also have the most efficient operations. And so what you see if you go to the EPA SmartWay site is that you have a list of those partners who have been validated and are on the top
There you
top
go.
20 list. And so this and I know this, and whether or not you love ESG, hate ESG, want to embrace ESG with your arms and legs and everything else, there are publicly traded companies that have ESG requirements. And what we're talking about, of course, is that they're having these environmental sustainability and governance requirements as part of their shareholder interest, part of
Sure.
shareholder proxies, et cetera.
Sure.
And so there are companies that have made it a stated goal to be as green as they possibly can. And so here, our members will go to this list and say, I want to be a part of it. So as my commitment to the EPA SmartWay program, I will pick those carriers that are also on this list that are pledged to be green, and they could be green in many different ways, right? They could improve their equipment, they could do subtle changes to make it so that it runs cleaner, whatever it is. And so that's one way that we can make a difference. And the value, of course, is we have a cleaner supply chain.
Right, 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 right. And some of the other efforts that are in there, so it's like a government stamp, right? Is what that is, right?
Yeah,
Saying, boom,
exactly.
you're certified,
Exactly.
which is cool and important, especially these days where people want to greenwash, litigate everything.
Right.
Which,
And it's voluntary. And so,
yeah,
all they're doing is trying to get to the best place they can without some sort of, government fiat, which nobody likes.
yeah, nobody. Yeah, I agree. But you talked about efficiencies as well, and I think I'd like to just highlight some of the things that a good intermediary can do, and the tech that they have there is through those efficiencies, and really the route optimization tools that they have, and the load planning,
Yeah.
and really the personal nature that has been growing for a number of years, and really I've seen it explode exponentially really over just the last few, and I don't know if that's your doing or not, but take credit anyways, doesn't matter, because it's important for the intermediaries to actually know the carriers that they're working with and what's in their wheelhouse, so to speak, what's their gravy routes, what's their desire routes, where are they moving next, and so on, to reduce empty miles, deadheads, and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I spoke to a gentleman who works with a very large customer, and he was analyzing where their shipments went out, and he said, "You guys have 5 shipments a week, and they go all over the place, but they end up needing to go to one place. Why wouldn't you try to consolidate it? And so instead of this, they're going to 5 different places, ending up in one place. Why wouldn't you consolidate it so it all goes into one place?" And it's sort of like, it sounds so simple when you explain it that way, but that's what our members are doing on a
Yeah.
larger scale, where they're working with their customers and saying, I get what you're trying to do. You need this, you need X product to go to Y place. Have you thought about making it more efficient by doing this, or working with our carrier community? Can we figure ways to interchange or interline? Can we do, right? I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
just provide the solutions that they may not have thought about. And why would they? That's not their business. Their business is not transportation. Their business is the goods that they produce. So it's incumbent on us as a broker community to try to figure that out. And again, not only is that more efficient, but it's also greener, right? Because we're saving miles.
It is. It's looking for those collaborative points that we traditionally think of, I guess, that are not trade secrets, but highly competitive in nature.
Yeah.
Let's say, and they really aren't, right? And that's one of the things when I, talking about the SSC earlier, the Scheduling Standards Consortium, was that the knowledge of when and how to schedule a delivery or a pickup is not a competitive data stream. Yet we've treated it like it was forever. And if we don't, now we can actually collaborate. I'm sure there's a bunch of those when you put the minds together and find those things, especially even within the intermediaries. One of the things I wanted to ask you about too, and is the third part of what I want of what I call sustainability and supply chain, the connection between, and that's really the supply chains of sustainability, right? And not necessarily, okay, yeah, you're going to have to move things and you're going to have to do that. I get it. The supply chain of sustainability, but the changes that are going to occur, right? And looking forward to that and how they're going to disrupt. I hate that word too, but it's accurate. Disrupt current supply chains and how they move. The current administration, President Biden, $22.4 billion into wind energy, offshore wind energy, right? Throwing it into manufacturing and vessels and infrastructure and all that other kind of stuff. That's going to change the infrastructure and the supply chains for many states and in many areas, right?
No, I think you're 100% right. And so,
that's just one example, right? The concept.
Yes. And I'll leave my personal feelings out of this. I would say this, that you think about if it's wind energy, if it's using electric vehicles or electric trucks, or
right.
If you're thinking about AI or anything like that, the futurescape, if you will.
Sure.
My counsel would be, let's make sure that we don't put the cart before the horse. And what I mean by that is this. So if we are all going all electric, and many states want to be, emission free by 2050, mm-hmm. I don't think that the trucking community is yet there. And I'm not sure what that timetable is. And sure. I think ATA today said that the timetable is much longer than the Biden administration thinks it is. But
it might be 2150.
But all of that is a good aim, as long as we, for example, have redundancy in our electric grid. Are we shoring up our electric grid? Because if we're going to start putting demands on electricity, and it looks like that is the goal. So how beyond building redundancy, how are we actually getting the electricity? Is it, wind can generate some for sure. Solar can generate some for sure. But what's the base load? Coal, as you mentioned, is now more expensive. Natural gas has now been the cheapest option, but there's some who are opposed to natural gas because it's still a fossil fuel. Well, I think fossil fuels are going to be the reality for a long time until we start developing more improvements in wind and solar, so it can actually retain the energy that it generates, which it doesn't today, right? It just doesn't.
Yes. No, I'm with you. And I'm of the exact same mind. I love the advancements. I'm not against any of the advancements. I'm against the hype, man. I mean, that's why I started the no bull logistics thing. It's just to say what everybody's thinking, or what maybe they should be thinking when they see these type of things, right? Because I put that out there, the report that coal is now more expensive than wind and solar, and it's true, it is. But does that mean we just jump on wind and solar and say forget about it? Because what would happen? Just talk about the disruption that will happen in supply chains is unbelievable. And when you talk about supply chains, if you talk about it in the grand scope of things across the world, it can't happen without intermediaries. It can't. You have to have intermediaries because you have to have that expertise and that efficiency that are looking through it and working with you. But think about how the world is going to change as we move forward. And like you said, if you put the cart before the horse, suddenly entire communities, states, regions, and maybe even countries just falter because now we're going green. Was that so good? Is it, you know what I'm saying? 5.9 million short tons million short tons of coal come out of South America. What happens if we just cut that off because we're going wind and solar?
Right.
Colombia done? Is Bolivia done? Or right?
Well, I appreciate the fact that we have this meeting of the minds, because my sole goal in life, I swear to you, as I get older, maybe I'm just becoming more boring. I don't know. But my sole goal in life is just to have a pragmatic discussion of what the future actually holds. So, we can all be boosters of things. That's fine. But let's be realistic about how that can work. And the transition to a fossil-free, future, which a lot of people want, means is not A, easy, B, a short term, or C, something that will be without its own share of risks and issues. And I think we should all have our eyes wide open about that. And again, the timeline for some is much long. The time horizon is much longer than others would prefer.
Yeah, it's a lot longer. Excuse me. Than probably I even think, and I'm one of those that are like, it's going to take a long time. I mean, look, Ukraine, hello, that just backed it up at least 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't think so, then you really need to think harder. I think you're on the same line with me because, I mean, because the have and have-nots are going to change. And if you think hot lead isn't going to fly because one has, and then they're not going to have, you're wrong. It is. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be different. We got to think through a lot of those things. But hey, what's new for TIA? Oh, go ahead. Give me a thought.
Well, I was just going to say, I would say this. So, however the government wants to work with the stakeholders in whatever it is. So, call it here. We're talking about the transition away from fossil fuels. I think that they cannot use the bully pulpit. I think they need to work cooperatively and collaboratively to really understand what exactly needs to happen. And that's not then somehow favoring special interests. It's not. It's just literally trying to understand them. And so, for example, with us, if you remember last year, the administration announced this FLOW initiative, which was all about data transparency, data collection across the supply. Well, which sounds terrific. It does sound terrific. One of our members is part of the FLOW initiative. However, I don't think they can get their arms around exactly what data they want, exactly what data isn't proprietary, and what kind of visibility they think would be transformational. And so, yes, we want to all participate, but you have to listen to us. We understand it sounds great. Data transparency sounds great. But what does that actually mean? And what data? Like if you're talking to a railroad, the railroad might say, you don't need the car loading information. You need where, from the point of the dray to the point of where we, pick up the freight. And I'm just making this up. But my point is they may think that's the information you need. You don't need what you think you need. And so how do you work through that? And so I feel like when a government says we know more than you, that's when the government's failing.
That's when you should get really scared.
That's when you get really scared.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the brilliant structures, moves and structures that Craig Fuller had at FreightWaves was combining the data science, the PhD in data science, with the street cred PhD earned trucking knowledge of the people who actually got dirty in diesel and forklifts and froze to death on open air docks for 12-hour night shifts like me together, so that they understood what the value was in that data and didn't go off on just, it's data, it's great, right? And what can be realized. That collaboration is what you're talking about, and that's really, really important. I'm totally on board with you on that one for certain. You've got to know what is going on. This has been a great discussion, and I really appreciate you coming on. We're going to have to do it again because there's so much more things. There's so many more things that I want to talk about that are going on, and we certainly will as we move forward. But
should we end on the Super Bowl predictions?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. You think it's going to be the same officiating crew that did the Cincinnati Kansas City game?
God, that was really awful.
What the hell was that?
What the hell happened?
One guy ran 4 yards and went like this, and so then they discounted the play and changed the entire game.
Yeah, because they didn't hear the whistle. Is that what it was? They didn't hear the whistle?
It didn't change. Nobody knew any of that happened at all, and then they changed the play. I mean, I get it if a flag is thrown and 3 or 4 guys stop. That makes sense. But that was – and then, man – there's one player on Cincinnati's team that I predict will not be there next year.
That poor kid. I feel awful for him. I feel awful for him.
I also saw a nice film of Mahomes, and I like Mahomes quite a bit, and they really are one of my favorite teams, really because of the commercial where he's drawn.
Oh, he's being drawn.
He's drawn mustaches on the player. Is one of the reasons I have to admit. But I saw of him walking with no limp after the conference.
Really?
Zero. There, you
No
look it
high
up.
ankle sprain lasting
Nothing.
effects for him, huh?
Nothing. After the press conference, he gets up and walks off the stage. The podium, takes 3 steps down.
He leaped off the stage.
Yeah, I mean, like he was doing handsprings almost. It was like, really? Blood on the. Remember the blood on the ankle thing in baseball?
I know.
He's like,
I know.
Really?
Well,
You sure
I can't
that's
ever root for the Eagles because I'm a Commanders fan, although I don't like that name.
They should have left it to Washington Football
I agree
Club.
with you.
It was
I
awesome.
agree with
It
you.
was awesome. The football club was great.
I
loved
know.
it.
Oh,
So,
well.
so you're going Chiefs. Huh? I
That's my
get it that
prediction.
you're rooting for the Chiefs, but what's your prediction?
Oh, golly. I don't know. Jalen Hurts is hard to combat. That kid has been, he's not a kid anymore. I don't know how old he's, but he's had a heck of a game, a heck of a season.
Yeah, I agree.
Although the Commanders beat him.
Yeah, they aren't undefeated. I mean, that's the thing. They aren't
aren't.
undefeated.
What do you think?
So I'm rooting for, and I think the Chiefs.
Yeah, I get it. Makes sense.
I mean, it's just they have this ability to win, and whether or not there's money exchanging hands or what, they certainly are the favorite of the refs, man. I mean, you can't discount the fact
I think that
the
is
flag seems to fly in their favor a lot.
unbelievable.
A lot. And so I don't know if that's plus, I mean, they are the official team of the official sponsor of the official Super Bowl too. So that's also something to
So
be
how
said,
could
right?
they lose?
I mean, right?
No way. No way.
I don't know. There might be something there for somebody to look into behind the scenes. I don't know, but
You heard it here first on the
you
Sustaining
did.
Act.
You
Michael
did.
Vincent.
I just make observations.
Comments of Michael Vincent do not represent the comments of the Sustaining Act.
Yes, my own opinions do not necessarily represent my own opinions. I am not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV either. And what's going on with TIA next? What is happening here? Conferences? What's going on?
Annual conference in Orlando, Florida. That's right. So our annual conference, we had our first one in 2 years last year in San Diego. We had 1,500 people. We actually had 1,499, but call it 1,500. There was a lot of pent up emotion. People wanted to be back together, and
I'm sure they did.
They did. We're looking forward to another exciting one. Bring your kids, bring your family. Enjoy the parks. We'll be there. It's going to be awesome.
It's in Orlando this year?
Oh, yeah. I should mention that. Sure.
Yeah.
It's in Orlando, Florida at the Lowe's.
I mean, I don't want everybody to show up in San Diego, Torrey Pines, and go, what?
Where? I thought it was here. No, it's at the Lowe's Pacific Resort, which is near Universal, I think, but also close to Walt Disney World.
I mean, yeah, it's on that side.
Yes. April 19th through the 23rd. Come on, go to Harry Potter World and Star Wars and whatever else. How many other things can I get credit for? Is anyone going to take credit for that?
It's awesome. And there's a lot of good golf around that area.
There's a lot of good. And, you know, I will tell you one more humble brag. We try to make sure that our conference does not stay the same conference every year because it's the benefit is being together, but we also want to make sure there's fresh content. And so
what do you mean?
Well, we're going to have a sustainability panel, for example. And so this would be the first time we're going to have a panel on sustainability. So I think there's someone that I'm talking to who might be a moderator.
You must have picked a really good moderator for that.
Yeah, I know. But the point of that is that because people's interests change over time. And so we want to make sure we evolve with those interests.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And like you said, the ideation, the discussion, the pragmatic discussion is really important. And I'm sure you agree with this statement. It's going to impact you. Doesn't matter if you're an intermediary, doesn't matter if you're a carrier, doesn't matter if you're asset-based or not asset-based or a tech company, whatever it is. Sustainability and the green movement, environmental concerns are going to impact you. So you need to pay attention.
100%.
Period. 100%. And if you're an intermediary, you better understand how it's going to impact the shippers and the carriers and the suppliers, and because
and
you
seek
need
out
to know all that.
right. You may need to get a competitive advantage by focusing on those sustainability initiatives for sure.
You never know. You never know. Yeah, I would bet that you do. And awesome stuff. TIA.com, is that what it is?
No, it isn't. It's
It
TIAnet.org, but close, very close. TIAnet.org.
TIAnet.org
Net.org.
is
Yes.
where
And
you need to go.
that is across all our social platforms too. It's TIAnet.org spelled out on all our socials. So if you were to like tag us or like us or what have you, it's always going to be that.
Check the
How about
stuff
that?
out.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, check the stuff out, and check out Ann on LinkedIn and follow her because it's good stuff.
I'm delightful.
I do.
As is
She
Michael.
she is delightful. It'd be, if you don't think so, go back and watch this again because I think it'll change your mind.